Chuck Noland, a systems engineer working for Federal Express, FedEx, finds himself in Moscow, Russia, showcasing the inner workings of FedEx to the local staff. He's on a mission to demonstrate the company's exceptional approach to business. Chuck emphasizes the importance of precisely completing the package sorting process according to a strict schedule. In an effort to achieve his goal, Chuck cleverly sends a package to himself from Memphis, America, destined for Nikola, Russia, at someone's house. A young kid from that house excitedly delivers the FedEx package to Chuck at the hub. Chuck eagerly opens it, revealing a clock inside. Starting from absolute zero, the clock shows a total travel time of 87 hours, 22 minutes, and 17 seconds. However, this time frame doesn't meet Chuck's high standards for timely delivery. As we delve deeper, we discover that Chuck Noland is a man who values strict schedules and deadlines. Ensuring packages reach their owners on time holds immense importance for him, despite the chaos in his personal life. Amidst all the hustle and bustle, Chuck has successfully maintained a long-term relationship with his girlfriend, Kelly. From Russia, Chuck calls Kelly to inform her that he will be back home in Memphis in approximately 18 hours. Excitedly, Chuck returns to the US and reunites with Kelly, showcasing their love for each other. The couple attends the grand Noland family Christmas dinner, where Chuck's brother playfully raises the topic of marriage. Chuck and Kelly laugh it off, skillfully avoiding a direct answer. However, Chuck realizes he needs to schedule a dentist appointment as he's been experiencing a toothache while eating. In a spontaneous moment, he glances at his pager, and Kelly catches his gaze. Understanding the situation, Kelly knows Chuck needs to leave for work again, even during the holidays. It becomes evident that Chuck is a man who prioritizes his job above all else, even during the holiday season. Despite the significance of the upcoming festivities, he remains resolute in his decision to leave. Understanding Chuck's commitment, Kelly accepts the circumstances and attempts to find a middle ground. Kelly suggests that he should be home before New Year's Eve, to which Chuck agrees. At the airport, just before Chuck boards his flight, Kelly surprises him with an old watch, a cherished family heirloom, as a Christmas present. Touched by her thoughtful gesture, Chuck reciprocates by giving her a small box. Kelly excitedly assumes it's an engagement ring. However, Chuck explains that they will open it together on New Year's Eve when he returns home. With that, he bids her farewell and heads off to catch his flight, leaving Kelly eagerly awaiting their reunion. Chuck embarks on a fateful journey as he boards the flight to Malaysia accompanied by 4 flight crew members. However, their peaceful journey takes a sudden turn when they encounter a powerful storm a few hours into the flight. Chuck overhears the pilots discussing their decision to deviate from the original course in order to evade the intensifying storm. However, their actions have resulted in being out of radio coverage, cutting off any means of communication. The gravity of the situation dawns upon Chuck, amplifying his sense of unease. Chuck made his way towards the airplane's bathroom, unaware of the impending danger that awaited him. The door violently swung open, causing a rapid depressurization within the cabin. The sheer force of the air rushing out threatened to pull Chuck out of the plane, testing his strength and resolve. Chuck managed to hold on tightly, desperately clinging to anything within his reach. With great effort, he managed to make his way back to his seat, where the flight crew swiftly came to his aid. Understanding the gravity of the situation, one of the crew members handed Chuck a life raft, a lifeline amidst the chaos. Water rushes into the cabin, creating a terrifying sense of urgency as Chuck fights against drowning. Grateful for the emergency inflatable life raft provided by one of the pilots, he clings to it for dear life. The unforgiving weather unleashes fierce waves that crash against him, intensifying the life or death situation. By some stroke of luck, Chuck manages to survive the ordeal, finding himself washed ashore on an uninhabited island. Emerging from the raft, Chuck takes a moment to assess his surroundings, relieved to discover that his watch remains safely strapped to his wrist. To his surprise, he also stumbles upon a few FedEx packages that have washed up on the shore. Gathering them in his hands, Chuck soon realizes that he is completely alone. However, the island's eerie atmosphere occasionally plays tricks on his mind. The sound of falling coconuts tricks him into briefly entertaining the thought that there might be someone else lurking nearby, observing him from the shadows. Driven by desperation to find sustenance and quench his thirst, Chuck dedicates a considerable amount of time to figure out how to open a coconut. His initial attempts involve hurling them at a large rock or smashing them against a smaller one, but these methods prove fruitless. Undeterred, Chuck eventually resorts to using a sharp rock to skillfully cut open the stubborn shell. In his resourcefulness, Chuck manages to spear small crabs for food. However, the lack of fire on the island poses a significant challenge. Without a means to cook the crabs, they remain an inadequate source of sustenance, leaving him longing for a more satisfying meal. The quest for food and fresh water becomes an ongoing struggle in his daily survival routine. Chuck found a little cave in the rough landscape while exploring the unknown island. He found 11 FedEx packages washed up from the plane disaster. He found one of the pilot's corpses alongside them. Chuck respectfully buried the pilot. Chuck saw hope on the moonlit beach one fateful night. A passing ship's lights signaled rescue. He grabbed a pilot's light to announce his presence. Despite his efforts, the ship vanished into the darkness. The next morning, the resilient survivor was determined to escape the island. He fled on the wreckage's rubber raft. The coral reef's hazardous surf had other ideas. Chuck's thigh was badly injured when the raft capsized. He never gave up. Chuck set up a small camp and used the island's resources to survive after the accident. He found odd objects in the FedEx packages. Ice skates, a leather and lace garment, interesting videos, and a divorce petition were among them. However, a gift with ornate wings intrigued him. He resisted the temptation to unveil its contents. Chuck wanted fire to warm his nights and fight his loneliness. Each failure frustrated him. He threw a parcels volleyball at the ground in a rage. His bloodied hand left a vivid impression on the ball, surprising him. He playfully named it Wilson after the brand on its outside. His silent confidant was the ball. Chuck told Wilson about their ill-fated flight and the enormous search area in the days that followed. He calculated that the region was about 500,000 square miles, twice the size of Texas, making rescue unlikely. He struggled with his isolation and unknown future. Chuck ingeniously repurposes the lace from the dress as a makeshift fishing net. With nimble precision, he casts his net into the crystal-clear waters, capturing a diminutive minnow. Despite his gnawing hunger, he musters the courage to consume it raw, though his grimace betrays his repulsion. Chuck works hard to master fire-making because he wants to survive. Frustration and setbacks plague the process. He keeps practicing, despite occasional doubts. Finally, a spark lights a blazing fire, lighting the night sky and warming his temporary shelter. Utilizing the shelter provided by a modest cave, Chuck skillfully fashions a rudimentary home. Nestled within its rocky embrace, he finds solace from the tropical storms that intermittently batter the island. Yet, even amidst the semblance of security, his ordeal persists. Since leaving Memphis, his painful tooth has worsened. Abscessed teeth throb with severe pain. Chuck resorts to a drastic measure. Armed with the sharp edge of an ice skate blade and a rock as his makeshift hammer, he braces himself for the harrowing task of extracting the tormenting tooth. Time trickles by relentlessly, 4 long years ebbing away. Chuck loses nearly 50 pounds and grows wild hair and beard in this constant struggle. Each passing day becomes a battle for survival, a relentless dance with the precarious nature of existence. A storm crashes upon the island, hurling 2 shattered walls of a fiberglass portable toilet onto the desolate shore. A spark ignites within Chuck's weary eyes as he witnesses the wayward debris dance in the wind. An audacious notion takes hold, to create a raft using the fiberglass walls as a sail to travel the hazardous waters and break the island's unrelenting breakers. Chuck chops down trees with his homemade tools, undeterred. He methodically builds the skeleton of his homemade vessel. He braids strong rope from local tree bark and videotape to connect his raft's key components. Chuck meticulously calculates the days to time his departure with the northeast trade winds. These ethereal currents could lead him to salvation in the shipping lanes labyrinth. Chuck chooses the huge, brutal sea over endless alone on the island, unsure of his destination. In the midst of his effort, doubt briefly enters his head. His grandiose idea is questioned by an inner murmur. Frustrated, he throws Wilson, his loyal companion, out of his cave. However, remorse overwhelms him and he flees his anguish. He apologizes to his inanimate companion and seeks redemption. Chuck carefully gathers food, drink, and other essentials for his escape. He tells Wilson, his quiet companion, to make rope again. He searches the island for saplings with a sharpened blade. He peels each sapling's bark to reveal its flexible fibers. His braiding is a symphony of resilience, a tribute to his tenacious soul. Chuck's heart falls as the island surrenders its precious resources, realizing that every seedling within reach has been sacrificed for his departure. He confides in Wilson that the remaining rope must be made from videotape. He feels uneasy since that extra rope is significant. In his deepest loneliness, he wrote it while contemplating an irreparable fate. Chuck hesitantly follows Wilson's suggestion. As a lonely soul, he climbs the island's peak. He finds peace and discomfort at its peak. The rope, intertwined with a lifeless dummy, hangs above him, a disturbing reminder of his past. He reclaims his inner struggles with shaky hands, knowing that its power will be tested well beyond its initial purpose. Chuck's friend Wilson and the FedEx parcel with wings secure the raft. He sails over the reef waves and escapes the island and lagoon with the new sail and handcrafted oars. He sails for a while, fishing and collecting rainwater to survive. After a storm, a weary Chuck is awakened by water in his face, probably from a whale's spout, and sees Wilson floating away. He tries to save Wilson but finds himself forced to let him go because he is frightened of losing the raft. Losing Wilson depressed him. When a whale spout wakes him up, he almost gives up hope of rescue. He turns over and sees a container ship passing. They've seen him. Chuck returns home to Memphis a month later. He talks to Stan, his trusted friend, on the plane. Stan's beloved wife died during Chuck's long absence, adding to the weight of their shared experiences. Their hearts are heavy as they contemplate the unimaginable grief of 2 funerals in such close succession. Chuck arrives as the honored guest to a warm welcome. The corporation hosts a spectacular welcome ceremony to honor his tenacious spirit. FedEx methodically organized the ceremony to honor Chuck's extraordinary survival. Chuck's gaze lingers thoughtfully on the sumptuous buffet spread before him. His mind drifts back to the island, where he fought against the elements and relied on his resourcefulness to procure sustenance. Kelly hoped to meet Chuck during the party but was confused. Her husband, an orthodontist who worked on Chuck's teeth, apologizes for her absence. He informs Chuck that Kelly is struggling with his sudden return. He requests more time. He watches Kelly cry and leave in a car through the window. Chuck takes a taxi to Kelly's house that night. She seemed to anticipate him and invites him inside. They converse about trivial matters, and he learns how much her life and objectives have changed, and how she handled his apparent death. Chuck returns Kelly's watch because it's a family treasure. She says the business thought a hazardous cargo caught fire and caused the collision. She shows him that his island was over 600 miles from the Cook Islands where the search was undertaken. His raft wandered 500 kilometers before being found. Keeps her photo. She returns his Jeep keys. He apologizes and drives slowly away in the pouring rain. Kelly chases him, calling him. In the downpour, they embrace passionately. She tells him she always assumed he was alive, but others advised her to go on. She confesses to loving him. He loves her, too. After a few more minutes in his car, Chuck urges Kelly to go home, supporting her decision to move on. Chuck tells Stan about his chat with Kelly and how he recognizes and accepts that while they will always love each other, their lives have diverged and they cannot be together. He admits to feeling extreme misery and helplessness on the island, recounts his failed suicide attempt, and describes how he received confidence that he would survive and accepted his isolation. Although he recently lost her, he accepts it and realizes that you never know what the tide will bring. In his Jeep, he goes to Texas with the FedEx delivery adorned with wings. He tries to bring it to a ranch with a wrought iron gate with the word Bettina on it, but no one is there. He leaves it at the door, accompanied by a message explaining that the parcel saved his life. He travels south and gets out of his car at a 4-way stop to consult a map. A nice, attractive woman in an ancient pickup truck approaches him and asks if he is lost. He admits, with a smile, that he hasn't decided where he's going. She tells him where the 4 roads lead, and that the north, which Chuck had just came from, leads to emptiness all the way to Canada. Chuck notices the same set of wings that were on the package on her truck's tailboard as she travels north. Chuck moves to the intersection center and takes a few seconds to look in each direction. He then heads north, his gaze remaining fixed on the direction in which the woman drove. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And subscribe for more insightful movie analysis. Stay connected with us as we explore the fascinating world of cinema.